I had been secretly in love with my Ice Queen CEO for 3 years. Then she stumbled across a photo of me carrying a little girl. She immediately blew up my social feed, demanding to know whose child she was. Just 3 minutes later, the entire company went absolutely nuclear. Total chaos. To understand how my life turned into this insane anime episode, we need to rewind to exactly 8 o'clock this morning. I had barely reached my desk. Before I could even sit down, a steaming cup of Americano appeared right in front of me. The one holding it was my office dad, a 34-year-old veteran from the data analytics team. His desk was right beside mine. Married for 5 years. Father of a 4-year-old daughter. Everyone in the company saw him as the definition of a perfect family man. He never fought for attention, never caused drama, and always clocked out exactly on time. Even weekends couldn't convince him to work overtime. His greatest hobby was shamelessly flexing photos of his wife and daughter. But the expression on his face today, I'd never seen anything like it. He looked exactly like one of those desperate heroes in a movie, trying to entrust the most precious thing in his life to a complete stranger. His eyes were determined. His lips were trembling. Even his eyebrows screamed, "Please, I'm begging you. Buddy, I need to ask you a huge favor." As he spoke, he gently guided a little girl out from behind him. She had 2 tiny pigtails. She was wearing an adorable strawberry pattern dress. And in her arms was a bunny plush bigger than her own head. Those big round eyes stared straight at me without blinking. "This is my daughter. We call her Candy. Hey there, Candy." I smiled and waved at her. She didn't answer. Instead, she hid behind her dad. Only half of her tiny face peeked out. The moment I saw that, my danger instincts kicked in. Sure enough, my office dad finally said the words I was afraid of. "Could you watch Candy for just one day?" My brain completely froze. During work hours? I already took the day off. I used my annual leave. He hurriedly explained. The words poured out at lightning speed. My wife's birthday is today. I promised to take her to Disneyland. The tickets were booked ages ago, but Candy's kindergarten suddenly closed for disinfection. Our babysitter quit yesterday. My parents went back to our hometown, and my wife can't rearrange anything anymore. The faster he talked, the more everything sounded like one giant tongue twister. "So, you wanted to bring your kid to the office?" "No! I know that's against company policy." "That's why I'm asking you." He rubbed his hands together nervously. His voice was practically pleading. "Could she stay at your place for just one day?" "My apartment?" "Just today. I'll pick her up at 5 this afternoon." My wife only gets one birthday every year. If I stand her up today, I'll never hear the end of it. As he kept talking, his eyes actually started turning red. A grown man, standing right in the middle of the office, almost breaking down, just because he wanted to keep his promise to his wife. I looked at him. Then I looked at little Candy hiding behind his legs. She slowly peeked her tiny head out. "Daddy, don't cry!" "I'm not crying. but your eyes are all red. It's just allergies. I'm allergic to happiness. Candy tilted her little head. Then she answered with complete sincerity. If you go to Disneyland, won't your allergy get even worse? I almost lost it. That was a critical emotional damage combo. Her dad knelt down. He gently held both of her little hands. Can you spend today with this big brother? Daddy will come back tonight to get you. She looked at me. Then back at her dad. Her little lips puffed into the biggest pout. No, because you don't look like you know how to braid my hair. My office dad slowly turned toward me. His eyes were practically begging for mercy. Come on, buddy. Please help me out just this once. She's seriously the easiest kid ever. She won't cause any trouble. You just have to keep an eye on her. Make sure she doesn't get hurt. Feed her 3 meals. And get her to take an afternoon nap. I already prepared all her food. It's in your fridge. You only need to heat it up. It's honestly super easy. Dude, I've never taken care of a kid before. It really is. Trust me. It's easier than writing code. Yeah, that sounded like the biggest scam I'd heard all week. Candy peeked out again. This time a little farther. She carefully looked me up and down. Do you have cartoons at your house? I've got Netflix. What's Netflix? It's a magical place where cartoons live. Does it have Peppa Pig? I think so. She thought about it for 3 whole seconds. Okay then. She nodded like she was reluctantly approving my application. I'll go to your house. My office dad let out the biggest sigh of relief imaginable. Then grabbed both my hands. He shook them 3 times with all his strength. You're my brother for life. Easy. I'm just babysitting for 1 day. You don't understand. His expression suddenly became deadly serious. He lowered his voice. My wife hasn't gone out alone with me in 3 months. Our last date was our wedding anniversary. But Candy came down with a fever. We spent the entire night in the pediatric ER. If today falls apart too, he drew a finger across his neck. I got the message instantly. This wasn't just babysitting for a coworker. I was literally trying to save this man's marriage. Fine. I sighed and accepted my fate. He thanked me about 1,000 times before leaving. Before he left, he kissed Candy on the forehead. Then started listing instructions nonstop. No mangoes, no peanuts, she's allergic. Cover her with a blanket during nap time. She hates green peppers. She's scared of thunder. Even though it's not supposed to rain today. She needs someone with her in the bathroom. She can't reach the sink by herself. The briefing lasted a full 10 minutes. His wife finally called and practically forced him to leave. He kept looking back every few steps. He looked exactly like a first-time parent dropping a kid off at kindergarten. Candy, meanwhile, couldn't have been calmer. She waved at her dad. Bye, Daddy, have fun! Then she turned toward me. Where's your car? In the underground garage. Does it have a child safety seat? I instantly went silent. I can't ride without one. Mom says that's against the law. Then how did you get here? Daddy drove me. He has one. And he took it with him? Yep. I fell into an even longer silence. So, how do we get home? She tilted her head and looked at me like I was the 4-year-old. Take the subway. I don't need a car seat on the subway. I had just been schooled by a preschooler. She had just taught me how to obey traffic laws and how to use public transportation. I had absolutely no comeback. Fair enough. So there I was, a 27-year-old single guy, standing on the Monday morning rush hour subway, holding the hand of a little girl with pigtails, while carrying her backpack and giant bunny plush with my other hand. Everyone around us kept staring like we were some bizarre, legendary combo. I somehow survived that mission without wiping. Once we got home, everything went way smoother than I expected. Candy was honestly an angel. She took off her own shoes without anyone asking. Then she neatly placed her little backpack on my coffee table. She climbed onto the couch all by herself. Even her giant bunny plush got its own perfectly organized seat beside her. Wow, your TV is huge. Can I watch Peppa Pig? Of course. I turned on the TV. Found Peppa Pig. Adjusted the volume. She was completely absorbed. Her tiny legs swung happily off the edge of the couch. Even her little pigtails bounced with every kick. While she watched, I caught up on work. Answered a few emails. Everything was unbelievably peaceful. So peaceful that I started thinking, maybe babysitting isn't that hard after all. Then I suddenly realized I hadn't requested leave from work yet. I grabbed my phone, opened the company app, and submitted a leave request. Then I switched to WeChat. I dropped a message into the team chat. Something unexpected came up today. I'm working from home. Message me if anyone needs anything. After sending it, I noticed a photo I'd casually taken earlier. Candy was eating ice cream. The picture turned out surprisingly adorable. She was smiling so hard her eyes became little crescents. There was vanilla ice cream all around her mouth. It looked like she'd grown a tiny white beard. On a whim, I opened Moments. Picked that photo. Caption: taking the day off to babysit. This little gremlin has unlimited energy. Cute, right? I read it over once. No typos. So, I hit post, then left my phone on the coffee table, and walked into the kitchen to heat up Candy's lunch. What I didn't know was that during those 3 seconds I spent walking away, my social feed completely exploded. And the person who lit the fuse was sitting in the executive office, at the very top floor of the company headquarters. The Ice Queen CEO was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. A cup of black coffee rested in her hand. Her expression never changed as she stared at her phone. She had been staring at my photo. For a full 2 minutes, the little girl in the picture smiled with innocent happiness. The woman outside the picture looked colder than a Siberian winter. She slowly put down her coffee. Then her fingers began typing a comment. Whose child is this? Apparently, that wasn't enough. She posted another one. I'm asking you. Still not satisfied. One more. She tagged me by my full name. No nickname. You'd better reply to me. Right now! 4 comments. Each one shorter than the last. And somehow, even colder. The first employee to notice was the office administrator. She had been doom scrolling during work. Then my post appeared. She was about to comment, "So cute." Then she saw the CEO's comments. She nearly dropped her phone from shock. Immediately afterward, she did exactly what every office gossip professional would do. She took screenshots and dumped them into the company gossip group. Guys, huge news! Attached. Screenshots of all 4 CEO comments. The group chat instantly entered full raid boss panic mode. Someone from legal said, "I counted. The CEO used 4 escalating warnings, 3 direct questions, 1 full name call-out, plus reply immediately. That's textbook intimidation!" Then someone from finance spoke up. Wait, why does the CEO care whether he has a kid? HR suddenly joined the conversation. You seriously don't know? I thought everyone knew the CEO had a thing for him. She's asked HR for his employee file more than once. And she even checked his relationship status. The office administrator froze. Wait. So, the CEO thinks he secretly has a daughter? HR immediately replied. Come on, just look at the tone of those comments. Doesn't it sound exactly like a wife discovering her husband has a secret child? Meanwhile, I was standing in the kitchen, carefully reading the sticky notes my office dad had left behind. Tomato beef pasta. Microwave for 3 minutes. Stir once, then heat for 1 more minute. Candy doesn't eat green peppers! The note underneath is for the green pepper dish. Don't mix them up! Thanks, brother. I lifted the top note. Sure enough, there was another recipe underneath. My office dad documented everything like he was writing production code. I put the pasta into the microwave. Set the timer. Then leaned against the kitchen counter. Suddenly, my phone started ringing in the living room. WeChat notifications. I ignored them. Then another one. And another. Then a dozen more. It sounded like a machine gun. I poked my head out of the kitchen. My phone was lying on the coffee table. Its screen kept lighting up. One message, then another, then another. They poured in like a waterfall. I picked up the phone. The notification badge simply read, Chung Joshiso Jasinsin. I honestly thought my department was discussing our latest project. Then I opened WeChat. The first thing I saw was the team chat. Over 99 messages, and every single one tagged me. Dude, check your moments. Bro, reply to the CEO right now. Are you still alive? Seriously, are you breathing? He definitely hasn't checked his phone. If he had, he'd probably be writing his will by now. Say something already. Is that little girl actually your daughter? Obviously not. She's our office dad's kid. We all know that. Yeah, we know. But the CEO doesn't. Right now, she definitely thinks you secretly have a daughter. Secret daughter? That's literally our office dad's child. He has a wife. But the CEO doesn't know he has a daughter. Wait, she couldn't possibly think that you had a kid with his wife, right? Please stop making it worse. At this point, my brain had blue screened. What child? What CEO? What secret daughter? I left the group chat. Opened my moments and instantly saw the 4 comments from my Ice Queen CEO. Whose child is this? You'd better answer me immediately. Under every single one, my coworkers had desperately tried explaining everything. CEO, that's not his daughter. It's our office dad's kid. Please, you've misunderstood. Please calm down. She never replied to a single one. A chill ran straight down my spine. Before I could even process it, my private messages exploded too. A message from my Ice Queen CEO. Come to my office. Now, immediately. My hand jerked. I almost dropped my phone. Right then. Changding. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Hot pasta in my left hand, a phone vibrating nonstop in my right, and standing in front of me, a 4-year-old staring at me with sparkling eyes. Uncle, why are you shaking? I'm not. Your hand is... I looked down. She was absolutely right. It's just microwave vibrations. The microwave had already stopped. I took a deep breath and made one of the bravest decisions of my life. I picked up my phone. CEO. Could I please finish taking care of my coworker's daughter first? The reply came back with only one word. Not even a period. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Then another message popped up. Wait. And whose kid did you say that was again? I typed at lightning speed. My coworkers. My male coworkers. Then bring her. Bring her upstairs with you. Yes, boss. Don't call me boss. Then, what should I call you? I froze, staring at the screen. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. Every office rumor flashed through my mind like a speed run. The Ice Queen CEO likes you. She even asked HR about your relationship status. Right now, she probably thinks you have a secret kid. I clenched my teeth. Then I typed 2 words. My queen? My heartbeat instantly went into overdrive. No reply. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Then, with trembling fingers, I typed, "Honey." The second I hit send, I genuinely thought I'd lost my mind. Typing. The indicator blinked for 10 full seconds. It looked exactly like a heart monitor. Up, down, up, down. Finally, the message arrived. The Ice Queen replied. With just one word. Yet somehow I could feel warmth through the screen. Come up. Bring the child. Message deleted. Another message. Deleted. I just want to see. Deleted again. Whether she looks like you. She's not my child. I know. I just wanted to see. What if our future child looks like this? I stared at those words. My brain completely blue-screened. She deleted them almost instantly. 5 or 6 messages vanished. But I'd already read every single one. Only one message remained. Come up. I looked down at Tang Tang. She looked right back at me. Mister, your face is really red. No, it's not. Your ears are red too. It's because it's hot. But didn't you set the AC to 24 degrees? E crouched down. I looked her straight in the eyes. Tang Tang, we're going somewhere. Where? My company. Why are we going there? Because my boss wants to meet you. She tilted her head for a moment. Then she asked a question that absolutely destroyed me. Is your boss going to braid my hair too? I looked at her messy pigtails, half ruined during the subway ride. Suddenly, this felt harder than any final boss fight I'd ever imagined. Probably. Okay. She jumped off the couch. Then she grabbed my hand. Is she pretty? Yeah, prettier than Daddy. That's not the same kind of pretty. Prettier than Mommy? I completely gave up answering. She looked up at me. Then she smiled. Mister, do you like your boss? How did you figure that out? Because your ears turned even redder. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again. The Ice Queen. Where are you? In the elevator. Good. I'm waiting for you. Outside my office. Actually, you came downstairs? To pick you up. Message deleted. To pick up the child. I was worried she couldn't reach the elevator buttons. As the elevator doors closed, I saw my own bright red face in the reflection. Standing beside the calmest 4-year-old on earth. That's when a terrifying realization hit me. This was about to become the longest day of my entire life. The elevator doors opened. The first person I saw was the Ice Queen herself, waiting in the lobby. The moment the elevator doors opened, I saw the Ice Queen, CEO, already waiting for me. 2 security guards stood quietly behind her. One held the glass door open. The other was standing by the elevator. It didn't feel like she was greeting an employee. It looked more like she was inspecting the aftermath of a natural disaster. She was wearing a fitted black shirt. The sleeves were casually rolled up, revealing her pale wrists. Her long hair wasn't tied back today. It rested softly on her shoulders. The ends curled ever so slightly. I only learned later, but she'd spent nearly half an hour styling it before leaving home. Too bad her expression completely ruined the elegant look. Her face was colder than an ice dungeon boss. She watched me step out of the elevator without saying a word. Her eyes stayed on me for maybe half a second. Then they instantly locked onto the little girl beside me. At that exact moment, the entire lobby seemed to freeze in place. Employees walking by suddenly slowed their pace. Some pretended to wait for the elevator. Others acted busy with their phones or their shoelaces. But every single one of them was secretly watching us from the corner of their eyes. Then the Ice Queen slowly crouched down. Her movements were so slow, they felt straight out of a movie. She stared directly into the little girl's eyes without blinking. I even noticed her pupils tighten, like she was searching for a treasure she'd lost years ago. Or maybe she was terrified of confirming the answers she expected. The little princess looked right back at her. Neither of them looked away. One was calm and innocent. The other looked colder than winter itself. The contrast was unreal. 5 long seconds passed in complete silence. Then the little girl smiled. She opened her mouth. And before anyone else could speak, she blurted out the cutest thing imaginable. "Wow, you're so pretty!" She tilted her little head. Her tiny pigtails flopped to one side. "You're even prettier than Uncle said!" I actually saw the Ice Queen's eyelashes tremble. She slowly stood back up, then lowered her voice and looked straight at me. "What exactly did you tell her about me?" "I only said you were beautiful." "And?" That's literally it. She stared into my eyes for 2 full seconds, like she was trying to detect even the tiniest lie. Finally, she looked back at the little girl. Her voice softened noticeably. "What's your name?" The little princess happily introduced herself. Then she proudly announced she was 4.5 years old. The next question came immediately. "Who's your dad?" My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to explain before things got weird, but she answered before I could. "My daddy's name is..." He works with data. He sits in front of a computer every day. His neck always hurts. I watched the Ice Queen's tense expression loosen ever so slightly. She quietly repeated my coworker's name, almost like she was searching through her memory. "The data analysis department." "Exactly." I jumped in before another misunderstanding happened. "He sits right next to me at work." "He's been here for 5 years." "He's married too." "I didn't ask you." One cold glance shut me down instantly. Yep, I immediately chose silence. She turned back to the little girl. "And your mommy?" "It's Mommy's birthday today." "Daddy took her to Disneyland." "So they left me with Uncle." She pointed her tiny finger straight at me. The Ice Queen simply nodded. "Uncle's really nice. He warmed up my lunch for me. And he even let me watch Peppa Pig." The corner of the Ice Queen's mouth twitched. She was clearly trying not to smile, and she was losing that battle. "So, he made your lunch?" "Yep." "It was yummy, just a little salty." Her eyes slowly drifted back toward me. "You even managed to make it salty?" "My coworker cooked it beforehand." "I literally just reheated it." "You can make food saltier by reheating it now?" "I swear, I didn't." I shrugged. That's literally how it tastes. It's always been like that. The Ice Queen CEO simply looked away, completely unfazed. So the real problem is that the chef can't cook. Wait, somehow this was all getting blamed on the poor guy? I mean, he served salty pasta to a little kid. How is that not his fault? I opened my mouth to argue, then immediately realized the logic was completely airtight. I had no counterplay. The Ice Queen quietly crouched down. She lowered herself until she was eye level with the little girl. Want to come upstairs with me? I've got lots of colored markers. And a huge drawing board. The little strawberry princess's eyes instantly lit up. Really? Really? Can I draw a bunny? And strawberries too? Can I draw Mr. too? The Ice Queen hesitated for a split second. Sure. Then she paused again. Yes. Can I make you look super pretty too? The tips of her ears instantly turned bright red. She hurriedly stood up. It was painfully obvious she was trying to hide how embarrassed she felt. Let's go! The little girl grabbed her hand without even thinking. I watched the two of them walk away. She wore an elegant black shirt. Every step calm and confident. The little girl bounced beside her. That strawberry dress swaying with every hop. Watching them hold hands as they walked toward the elevator felt strangely perfect. Like that scene had always been destined to exist. I started following behind them. Without even turning around, she said, "Stay in the back." Why? Because you'll block the view. Block what view? She lowered her head and looked at the little girl. The little girl looked back up at her. Their eyes met. Only for a second. Then she quickly looked away, her ears even redder than before. The elevator suddenly became unbelievably quiet. The Ice Queen stood on the left. The little girl stood in the middle. I stood on the right. The little girl stared at the floor numbers climbing higher. The Ice Queen stared at the little girl. And I was staring at the Ice Queen, staring at the little girl. The atmosphere felt like a pot of water seconds away from boiling over. Auntie? Your hand is really cold. Is it? Are you cold too? No! Then why are your hands so cold? I was born that way. So in summer, you're basically an air conditioner? I guess. The little girl happily swung their joined hands. Then I'll hold your hand every summer to cool off. The Ice Queen didn't answer. But I saw it. The tiniest smile curled onto her lips. Just once. So fast that anyone else would have missed it. Unfortunately for her, I caught every single frame. She noticed me watching and shot me a deadly glare. I immediately pretended I hadn't seen anything. I looked up at the elevator display instead. Meanwhile, my brain was already launching fireworks. This was peak rom-com energy. The elevator finally reached the executive floor. The moment the office door opened. Whoa! Even I had to admit, the CEO office was ridiculously huge. At least 3 times bigger than my entire apartment. A massive floor-to-ceiling window. Sunlight poured across the dark wooden floor. Bookshelves stretched all the way to the ceiling, packed with trophies and design portfolios. One corner even displayed an insanely expensive bonsai worth 6 figures. Beside it sat a premium coffee machine and a private mini fridge. But the little girl couldn't care less about any of that. "Auntie, what's that?" She pointed toward the very top shelf. The Ice Queen followed her finger. Her expression changed instantly. "Nothing, just a rabbit." I finally noticed it too, a small white rabbit ornament. "Do you like rabbits too?" After a brief silence, she quietly answered, "Can you give it to me?" I almost burst out laughing. That wasn't some random decoration. I'd seen it during previous work reports. The craftsmanship was incredible. She had actually won that ceramic rabbit at an auction. It definitely wasn't something she'd casually give away. The Ice Queen shot me a warning glare. That look practically screamed, "What's so funny? Keep laughing and see what happens." Then she turned back to the little girl. "You can have it!" The little strawberry princess's eyes sparkled like they were filled with stars. "Really? Really? But I'll give it to you when it's time for you to leave." "It's too high. You can't reach it right now." "Then, can you help me get it?" The Ice Queen glanced at the towering bookshelf. Then she looked down at the tiny girl. After a brief silence, she did something I never would have predicted, not even in my wildest dreams. She bent down and effortlessly lifted the little girl with one arm. A billionaire CEO in a tailored designer shirt, wearing a luxury watch worth more than most cars, holding a 4-year-old like she weighed absolutely nothing. The two of them walked toward the bookshelf. The little girl stretched out her tiny hand toward the rabbit. "I got it!" The Ice Queen gently lowered her back onto the floor. She moved as if she were handling the world's most fragile treasure. The little girl hugged the ceramic rabbit tightly, then looked up at her. "Thank you, Auntie." "You're so nice." She didn't say a single word. Instead, she turned around to grab the markers, but I caught something the moment she turned her back. That smile had become even bigger. Markers, drawing paper. She carefully took everything out of the cabinet, one piece at a time. Then neatly arranged them on the coffee table. The little girl climbed onto the sofa. Her tiny legs couldn't even touch the floor. They just swung back and forth happily. She still refused to let go of her new ceramic rabbit. She looked happier than a kid on Christmas morning. "Auntie, will you sit beside me?" The Ice Queen glanced at me. I immediately acted innocent. She quietly sat down beside the little girl. The little artist got to work immediately. She even stuck her tongue out while concentrating. That tiny habit looked exactly like my programmer buddy. Whenever he was deep in the coding zone, the Ice Queen simply sat there, quietly watching. The entire scene felt surreal. A billionaire CEO. Inside an office worth a fortune. Doing absolutely nothing. Just watching a 4-year-old draw wobbly little doodles, crooked lines. And somehow she watched with complete focus, as if this were the single most important meeting on today's schedule. "Auntie?" The little girl suddenly stopped drawing. "Can you draw too?" "A little." "Then can you teach me how to draw a bunny?" "Of course." She picked up a marker and began sketching on the whiteboard. A fluffy rabbit slowly appeared. Round, sparkling eyes. one ear standing tall, the other adorably flapped over. It looked unbelievably alive. The little girl was completely blown away. Whoa! Auntie, you're amazing! You like it? I love it. Then it's yours. Really? Really? She bounced excitedly on the sofa twice. Then suddenly threw her arms around the Ice Queen's neck. My heart literally skipped a beat. The Ice Queen froze like her brain had completely crashed. Her hands slowly lifted from her sides. She hesitated, unsure whether she should hug the little girl back. 2 long seconds passed. She lowered her hands again. She didn't return the hug, but she didn't push her away either. She simply sat there, stiff as a statue, while a 4-year-old clung to her neck. I've never seen someone look so completely lost. The little girl finally let go. She stared straight at the Ice Queen's face. Auntie, your face is red. It is! Look! She turned toward me. Mister! Auntie's blushing! I barely held back my laughter. Yeah! I can definitely see it. She immediately fired another death glare at me. I instantly lowered my head and pretended to be completely absorbed in my phone. Auntie! The little girl suddenly whispered. She leaned close to the Ice Queen's ear, using that classic kid voice. The one children think is whispering, even though the entire room can hear every word. Does Mr. like you? The Ice Queen's marker stopped moving instantly. So did I. The office fell completely silent for 3 full seconds. Then she finally spoke. Her voice sounded perfectly calm. But I noticed her fingers quietly tightening around the marker. Because Mister keeps staring at you. The little strawberry princess said it like it was the most obvious fact in the world. He's been looking at you this whole time. When you were drawing, he was watching you. When you picked me up, he was watching you. And even now, he's still looking at you. The Ice Queen slowly turned her head toward me. There was suspicion in her eyes. Curiosity. And something else I couldn't quite read. She's making things up. The words flew out of my mouth before I could stop them. I'm not making it up. The little girl immediately protested. You really have been staring at Auntie. And on the subway, you even told me. I hurriedly cut her off. Told you what? The Ice Queen's voice drifted over my shoulder. Cold enough to rival industrial air conditioning. Nothing! What exactly did he tell you on the subway? She sounded perfectly calm. But I swear, the office temperature just dropped 3 degrees. It was really nothing, Mister said. She fired the words out like a fully automatic machine gun. There was absolutely no stopping her now. He said his boss is really, really pretty. But also really scary. He gets so nervous every time he sees you that he forgets how to talk. I slowly closed my eyes. Only 2 words echoed inside my head. I'm finished. And he also said, the little snitch continued without mercy. He waits in the lobby every morning. Just to see you. But when you actually arrive, he gets too scared to say hello. So he pretends to tie his shoelaces. I was in full panic mode. This boss fight was unwinnable. He also said your eyes. She tilted her head, trying to remember. We're like stars in winter. No, maybe the winter moon? Something beautiful in winter. That's enough. The Ice Queen finally spoke. The little girl instantly fell silent. So did I. The office became so quiet I could hear traffic outside the building. She quietly set the marker down, then walked over to her desk. She picked up the now cold coffee and took a small sip, then calmly placed it back down. During that entire sequence, she never looked at me once. But her ears, from the lobes all the way to the tips, were completely crimson. Critical hit, confirmed. She spoke to the little girl exactly as usual. Calm. Cool. What would you like to drink? I'll have someone bring it up. Do you have strawberry juice? Yes, I'll ask administration to buy some. Auntie, you're the best! She picked up the office phone and called administration. Miss Liu, please bring up a bottle of strawberry juice. She paused, then glanced at the little girl. And a box of blueberries! Plus some yogurt. Plain flavor. She hung up, then turned back to the little girl. Anything else you'd like? She thought for a moment. Can I have ice cream? Of course. What flavor? Strawberry! She immediately picked up the phone again. Miss Liu! Please add 1 strawberry ice cream. In a cup. Not a cone. It'll be less messy for a child. I couldn't help interrupting. Boss, you really don't have to. She cut me off immediately. I wasn't asking you. She didn't even bother turning around. I shut my mouth again like the defeated NPC I apparently was. 10 minutes later, Miss Liu personally arrived with the strawberry juice, the blueberries, the yogurt, and the strawberry ice cream. She opened the office door and froze after seeing the scene inside. The Ice Queen was sitting quietly on the sofa. Beside her sat the cheerful little girl. The kid was happily drawing on the whiteboard, both hands covered in colorful marker ink. Meanwhile, the Ice Queen held her coffee, occasionally lowering her gaze to admire the drawing before giving a quiet, approving nod. Meanwhile, I was standing 3 meters away, like a forgotten houseplant that nobody remembered to water. When Miss Liu set everything down and turned to leave, the expression on her face looked like she'd just witnessed the greatest miracle of her career. The instant the door closed, I could vaguely hear her out in the hallway. She let out a muffled scream she was desperately trying to suppress after finishing her ice cream and her strawberry juice. The little girl drew 3 rabbits, 2 strawberries, and 1 wonderfully crooked orange sun. Then she started getting sleepy. Her head slowly began to droop. The marker slipped from her tiny hand. It dragged a long orange curve across the whiteboard before falling away. The Ice Queen reached out and gently supported the back of her head. Her reaction was so quick, you'd never believe she'd never raised a child. She looked down. The little girl had already fallen asleep, long eyelashes resting peacefully, her tiny mouth slightly open. Her breathing became slow and steady. The Ice Queen stayed completely still. "Boss," I whispered, "you can lay her down." "Won't you wake up?" "No." "She sleeps deeply." "How do you know?" Her father told me. Once she's asleep, nothing wakes her. The Ice Queen hesitated briefly, then carefully laid the little girl down on the sofa. She took off her own suit jacket from the coat rack and covered the child with it. The jacket was far too large. It wrapped her from head to toe like a tiny sleeping cocoon. Only the tips of her little pigtails peeked out. The Ice Queen quietly crouched down, right beside the sofa. She simply watched the tiny bundle sleep. Her eyelashes are really long. When she's asleep, she reminds me of you. Can we please stop saying that? She isn't my daughter. I know. She turned and looked directly at me. But when she's sleeping, the resemblance is still there. How? Everyone looks the same with their eyes closed. No. She slowly shook her head. Her tone became strangely serious. When you fall asleep, your eyebrows stay slightly furrowed, as if you're still worrying about something. But when she sleeps, her face is completely relaxed. She feels safe. Still, the curve of your eyelashes is exactly the same. They both lift ever so slightly near the outer corners. I just stared at her. My brain had completely stopped working. I've noticed, she added quietly. You've watched me sleep? You fell asleep while working overtime 3 different times. Once in the meeting room. Twice at your desk. Why didn't you wake me up? Because your frown disappeared. She lowered her eyes toward the sleeping child again. When you're awake, you're always frowning. Like you're carrying the whole world on your shoulders. But once you're asleep, that expression finally softens. It looks like you're dreaming about something that makes you happy. I didn't want to interrupt that. She said it so softly. It sounded more like a confession to herself than to me. I stood 3 meters away, staring at the woman every employee feared. She was crouching beside a sofa, covering a sleeping 4-year-old with her own suit jacket, and casually admitting she'd memorized my sleeping habits over the past 3 years. I finally asked, "How long have you liked me?" She didn't answer. Long enough for the little girl to roll over in her sleep. One tiny kick pushed the jacket aside. The Ice Queen quietly tucked it back around her. Do you remember the day you came here for your interview 3 years ago? She finally broke the silence. I remember. It was raining. You arrived 40 minutes early. The receptionist asked you to wait. You sat on the sofa, took off your rain-soaked shoes, and rested your bare feet on the carpet. How do you know that? I saw you through the security cameras. She paused, as if deciding whether to reveal the rest of the truth. Then the Ice Queen admitted something that completely broke my brain. She had actually gone back and pulled the security footage. Not once. She watched the recording of me standing barefoot on the office carpet, and even remembered my toes curling twice. Because, according to her, I probably thought the carpet felt ridiculously soft. I stared at her in disbelief. She simply said she only remembered the things that were about me. Then she walked toward the window. Her back was facing me. The setting sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling glass. A golden halo wrapped around her silhouette like something straight out of an anime ending. She spoke softly. Back then, I kept thinking, why is this guy so weird? Who takes off his shoes during a job interview? But then another thought crossed my mind. Working with someone this strange would probably be interesting. So, that's why you hired me? Just because of that? She slowly turned around. Her eyes never left mine. Half her face was hidden in the shadows. There was another reason. During your interview, you said something I'll never forget. You said you hate lying. You told me lies are exhausting. It's better to face problems directly. Did I really say that? You did? It became the most important sentence you've ever spoken to me. From that day on, I made myself a promise. If the day ever came, she paused. To tell me what? She took a slow, deep breath. If I ever confessed to you, I would say it directly. No lies, no games, no beating around the bush. Then she stepped closer. My heartbeat instantly went raid boss mode. So I'm telling you now. Another step. I like you. Not because you're my employee. Not because we're coworkers. She stood right in front of me. The sunset sparkled inside her eyes. And suddenly I realized every tiny act of kindness I'd missed over the last 3 years. She continued, when I saw your social media post saying you were taking care of someone else's child, I became so jealous I nearly lost my mind. I lowered my head to look at her. Her eyelashes were trembling ever so slightly. I knew that child wasn't yours. But I still had to come see it myself. I had to confirm it. I just wanted to stay by your side. Her voice dropped into a whisper. I've loved you for 3 years. And I was too afraid to say even a single word. The office fell completely silent. Only the little girl breathed peacefully on the sofa. Outside, the last rays of sunlight disappeared below the horizon. I reached out and gently held her hand. It was freezing cold. Ice Queen. Do you know why every report I sent always ended with, "Thank you for your hard work, boss"? Because I never knew how to tell you that I missed you. I felt her fingers tighten around my hand. Every time I finished another report, shut down my computer, and walked home, I always wondered, what is she doing right now? Has she eaten yet? Is she alone in that office feeling cold? At first, I thought it was just concern for my boss. But eventually, I realized I only worried about her. When other coworkers pulled all-nighters, I never asked if they'd eaten. When teammates stayed up finishing projects, I never reminded them to take care of themselves. But whenever she worked late, even until 8 at night, I couldn't sit still. Why? I looked down at our hands tightly intertwined. Because I love you. I've loved you since the very first report I ever sent you 3 years ago. I was just too stupid to realize it. It took me 3 whole years to understand my own heart. She didn't say a word. She simply squeezed my hand even tighter. When she finally spoke, her voice was slightly hoarse. So, how long have you loved me? 3 years? You're lying! I couldn't help laughing. Hold on, didn't you just admit it took you 3 years to figure it out? She smiled softly. Figuring it out and falling in love aren't the same thing. I've been in love with you since 3 years ago. I just thought those feelings were nothing more than an employee admiring a great boss. Then she chuckled. Normal employees don't text their boss, "Get some sleep" every single night. Sleep early. But now I finally understand. So, you finally figured it out. She nodded before lowering her head. Her forehead rested gently against my shoulder. I've waited so long! I'm sorry, I cut her off immediately. No, you're not allowed to apologize. She laughed quietly. Then, what should I say? She lifted her head. Her eyes were slightly red, yet the corners of her lips curved into a smile. Say, honey, you've worked hard. I laughed before repeating it. Honey, you've worked hard. She didn't answer. She simply intertwined our fingers together, holding on so tightly that neither of us wanted to let go. The setting sun stretched our shadows across the office floor. On the couch, the little girl rolled over and mumbled in her sleep. So many bunny rabbits. My boss glanced toward her, then looked back at me. She still looks just like you, I sighed. Can we please retire that joke already? No, for the first time all day. She gave me a completely unguarded smile. Her eyes curved beautifully. This is the happiest moment I've had today. Because you found out that little girl isn't my daughter. And because I realized I still had a chance. She stood on her tiptoes. Her lips moved close to my ear. You can't run away from me anymore. Right at that moment, the office door suddenly swung open. The office administrator froze in the doorway, still holding a cup of coffee. Her expression changed from delivering coffee to I just witnessed a miracle. The whole transformation took about 0.3 seconds. Sorry, I'm so sorry. She backed toward the hallway while trying to close the door. Unfortunately. She blocked the door with her own body. My boss slowly released my hand. So calmly that it almost looked intentional. Like she wanted everyone to see exactly what had happened. Her CEO voice instantly returned. Leave the coffee on the desk. On the desk. Yes, of course! The poor woman practically crawled inside. She dropped off the coffee and immediately turned to run. Just before reaching the door, my boss called after her. One more thing. Don't go spreading rumors about what happened today. I won't, I swear. I didn't see anything. I've completely forgotten. I don't remember a single thing that happened in this room. My boss simply nodded. Good, you may go. She disappeared down the hallway at full speed. 3 seconds later, a muffled scream echoed from the far end of the corridor. Then came a stampede of hurried footsteps. Yeah, she definitely sprinted back to HR to spill the biggest tea of the year. My boss stared toward the doorway. The tiniest smile appeared on her face. She'll tell everyone. I know, but why let her? Because I need someone to make the announcement for me. Announce what? She turned toward me, then reached over to straighten my crooked collar. She did it so naturally, as if she'd imagined this moment 1,000 times. That you're not single anymore. That way nobody else will try to steal you. No one's chasing me. The guy from marketing. He brought you coffee 3 times last week. That's just coworkers being nice. And the new intern from administration. Left handwritten notes on your desk twice. And the legal department's senior advisor invited you to lunch 3 different times. He's a guy. Doesn't matter. She waved a hand. Her expression stayed perfectly calm. I already told you. You're not getting away. I stared at her unbelievably serious face, then burst out laughing. What? She frowned. I was just thinking, The mighty Ice Queen CEO gets jealous like an elementary school kid. I'm not jealous. Oh, you absolutely are. You're even jealous of another guy. She paused for a second before trying to defend herself. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That guy had taken you out for lunch 3 different times, and 2 of those lunches were at your favorite Japanese restaurant. Meanwhile, I had never been the one to take you there. You even know which restaurant I like? Of course I did. Last month, I overheard you chatting with one of our coworkers in the break room. You casually mentioned their salmon was unbelievably fresh. You actually remembered something that small? I smiled. I only remember the things that are about you. Then I quietly walked back to my desk. I pulled open the drawer without another word. Inside was a notebook that I slowly handed over. Open the first page. The page was packed with tiny handwritten notes. Fang Yuan doesn't eat cilantro. Never forget. Favorite drink, oat milk latte. Recently switched brands. Reason unknown. Ask which Japanese restaurant Fang Yuan likes the most. Order salmon, sweet shrimp, and sea urchin. Don't forget. Take Fang Yuan to the Ferris wheel she once said she wanted to visit. Birthday, November 22nd. Lambai days remaining. Today, she wore a new navy blue coat. It looked amazing on her. Wanted to compliment her, but couldn't bring myself to say it. She laughed 3 times today with the guy from marketing. His jokes weren't even funny. She worked until 11 tonight. Wanted to tell her not to overwork herself. Couldn't say it. When she reached the last line, I saw her eyes immediately turn red. She looked up at me quietly. You never had to write all of this. Why? Because you could have just asked me. You completely froze. If you wanted to know what food I hated, or what coffee I liked, or where I wanted to go, you could have asked. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She smiled gently. I've been remembering things about you, too. I just never wrote them down. How do I know? Because every time I looked at you, those were the things I noticed first. At that moment, my eyes burned. I slowly walked over to her. The next second, she wrapped both arms around my waist. Then she buried her face against my chest. Just let me hold you. Just for a second. Actually, a little longer would be even better. She hugged me with all her strength, so tightly that even through my shirt, I could feel every beat of her heart. Behind us, the little kid rolled over on the couch, still talking in her sleep. Bunny, don't run away. She let out a quiet laugh against my chest. She's cuter than you. Seriously? You're comparing me to a 4-year-old now? Nope. She looked up with sparkling eyes, because she's more honest than you. When she likes rabbits, she says it immediately. But you loved me for 3 whole years and stayed silent. I've finally said it now, but maybe I'm too late. So, what's my punishment? She grinned mischievously. Your punishment is saying it every single day. Sang? What? I lowered my head and gently pressed my lips against her forehead. I love you. I really love you. I've loved you for 3 years already, and I'm going to keep loving you for the rest of my life. She tightened her arms around me again. That's enough. Outside the window, the sunset painted the entire city gold and crimson. At the top floor of the company, I was holding the woman who had secretly filled 3 notebooks with memories of me, yet never found the courage to confess. Beside us, the little girl slept peacefully, wrapped inside an oversized suit jacket like a tiny cocoon. Then my phone suddenly vibrated. I ignored it, until it buzzed over and over again. Curious, I finally pulled it out. The company gossip group had exploded. 999's unread messages. Pinned at the top was a message from the office queen. Guys, this is not a drill. I just delivered coffee to the CEO's office. And you'll never guess what I saw. The replies flooded in instantly. I saw the Ice Queen CEO holding Fang Yuan's hand. And trust me, that wasn't just a normal handhold. The entire office is about to lose its mind. Our fingers weren't just touching anymore. They were completely intertwined. Then someone pointed out the little girl sleeping on the couch, wrapped up in my boss queen's suit jacket like a tiny burrito. That's when the office conspiracy theories went absolutely off the rails. What kind of theory? They seriously think that's her daughter! Bro, whoever started that rumor needs to log off. Stop making things even crazier. I sighed and shoved my phone back into my pocket. The Ice Queen slowly lifted her head from my chest. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing. I was just reading the group chat. They think that little girl is yours. She stayed silent for a couple of seconds. You aren't going to clear it up? I asked. Clear up what? Instead, she buried her face against my chest again. After a brief pause, our future child will be even cuter. My heart instantly skipped a beat. Wait, what did you just say? Her voice was soft, almost muffled. But every single word landed like a critical hit. I said, our child will be even cuter than that little girl. What? You don't want to have children with me? No, I do. Good. That's all I needed to hear. She hugged me even tighter. So whether that child belongs to me or not doesn't matter. She looked straight into my eyes. The sunset shattered into countless golden sparks inside her eyes. The children will belong to both of us. I lowered my head. And this time, I kissed her without hesitation. No interruptions, no bad timing. Tang Tang simply rolled over in her sleep. Her stuffed rabbit slipped from her arms onto the floor. Neither of us moved to pick it up, because in that moment, the only thing that existed in my world was her.